of light. Whatever you want now, tonight is the night. Gypsy, you know that you got me the way that you want me. So love me tonight. And I want your love so badly. Yes, I do, girl. You know that I do. And I want to hold you close to me. You're my world now. You're my gypsy girl. Gypsy, with eyes that see through me, with arms that surround me. You got me tonight. Gypsy, I'm under your spell now. You know me so well now. So love me tonight. And I want your love so badly. You know I do, girl. You know that I do. And I want to hold you close to me. You're my world now. You're my gypsy girl. And I want your love so badly. You're my woman. You know that I do, girl. And I want your love so badly.
Know that I do, girl. Gosh, you couldn't but help sing along to that waiata. Kia ora, kia ora, kia ora e te whānau. So it's just after lunchtime today. We just got back from our daily pool. Me and my darling go to the spa, the sauna, try to go to the gym. We don't make it to the gym every day, but it's like being blessed and being baptized every day. It's amazing, and what a beautiful waiata to start our kōrero off today. Because a lot of my kōrero is pretty intense stuff, but it's stuff we need to know. And if there's anything that I do, I guess it's staying true to myself and sharing the information that I'm aware of. And you keep me updated as well, whānau. So I just want to acknowledge you all. Kia ora Belinda, kia ora KG, kia ora Michelle, how are you? Miriana, awesome, Moana, Thank you all for tuning in this morning. And the topic, really, it's a theme that I've had this week, and because it's what we've been through over the last 2.5 years. Those of us that have tried to protect the sovereignty of our tinana, the sovereignty of our bodies, in regards to mandates, and the whole no jab, no job, and how a lot of whānau, we've lost a lot of whānau over the last couple of years, um, and our health system is in a crisis. So, what are we going to do about it? Well, first, we have to understand the world around us, and a lot of us have been blinded for many, many years. And I've stated this in previous lives that I actually thank this pandemic for opening up our eyes. There were people that were way awoke before we were, and we looked at them sideways, and you and I did the same. We were like, really? Really? And now people are looking at us sideways, but we are more informed, we are more educated, and we have a lot more research and data behind us to support us. And I'm after justice. I'm after justice for our whānau that have been vaccine injured, and I'm after justice for our whānau that have died of their vaccine injuries. And that's it for me, pretty much. That's I'm after, as I've told you in the past, I'm after political utu. Because all those politicians, those 120 politicians that would not come out, would not even talk to those that were vaccine injured. Even if you had one kaupapa and that was just to listen, because you didn't know. You think you knew, but you didn't know. And now history has laid it out for all of us. And we're even hearing commentators, even in the Māori space, Māori's leaders coming out and saying, we didn't have all the data, we didn't have all the information. Well, it was there. You just willfully turned a blind eye. And that's how I see it. Sorry, I'm going to call it out for what it is. You willfully turned a blind eye. You saw the money coming down, and you chose the money over looking after your people. And I will hold you accountable for my father's death. Period. So anyway, whānau, but we have to know what we're dealing with, and we can't be overwhelmed. Don't be overwhelmed. We've got to take things, some of us are at different levels, and some of us are going to get overwhelmed with the information that I share. But I'm not sharing it to upset you or overwhelm you. I'm sharing it because you need to know. And you need to know what these politicians have been doing behind our backs. So we all know that Jacinda Ardern is an alumni of, and many leaders. Apparently, even Luxon has been part of all the leaders, all the bureaucrats. So you got two-tier politics in Wellington, right? You've got the elected politicians and the unelected politicians. They're both politicians. The unelected politicians are career politicians. You've got a few career elected politicians as well. But we have a lot more information that we can deal with coming into the 2023 election, even coming into our local government elections, which is only a few months away. And like I've said to people, I want to decentralize the power and bring it back to our communities, because that's where it belongs. You and I in our communities should be making the decisions for our communities, right? Not someone behind a closed door in Wellington who doesn't understand our communities. Māori have said that for a long, long time. Okay, we've said that we know how to look after our whānau, leave that to us. And we've proven that time and time again, that we know how to look after ourselves. But I want you to think back to yesterday's live when I talked about the data and statistics bill that's coming through. It's nearly law, and how that well, is it an appendage or is it the beginning prior to the DIST? Sorry, I'm just trying to think what it is. The data identity DIST, the Data Identity Services Trust Framework Bill. It's such a wordy bloody bill, but basically they want to take our data, and those two bills go hand in hand. So this isn't a conspiracy, whānau, because it's happening as we are sleeping. And the media has been a bit soft, as we know. I mean, I've got no trust in mainstream media. It's not mainstream media anymore. They're just the stool pigeons of the politicians, and the politicians are the stool pigeons for the global elite. I mean, just look at the whakapapa, and that's where it sits. And if you don't agree, then you're in denial and you deserve everything that's coming down to you. Nah, just kidding. Just kidding. But you just look at everything that's happening. So there are a lot of white papers that come out of the World Economic Forum. And I want you to take this in context with the legislation that's sitting there, right? And so when you have an unelected global billionaires from the Billionaires Club that are influencing sovereign states, you know we're in trouble. I've been grabbed for swearing too much, but anyway, I whispered that one. But you know we're in trouble, right? When global elites are dictating to our sovereign governments by putting their stool pigeons in there and bringing these white papers through to fruition and making them law and sovereign state governments. So we're realizing this, the pennies dropping all around the world. It's not just happening here in Aotearoa, in New Zealand, Aotearoa, it's happening all around the world, but we're the guinea pigs, right? And if you don't believe me, and I put up a number of heaps of information for you in yesterday's live, in the comments part of the live, and so there's quite a lot of reading for you to do. But I thought that I will talk about what and I've talked about it in the past, but I get different people watching my lives at different times. And so, for some of you that follow me religiously, I'm going to repeat myself, but I have to continue to repeat myself so that you get it, so everyone gets it, and I'm trying to get everyone up to the same page, because we're all fighting for our tamariki and our mokopuna's future. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. I don't care about my future. I'm in my twilight age. Well, I do, but if you know what I'm saying, it's not my future that I'm concerned about. It's my tamariki, really my mokopuna's future, that I'm really concerned about. So, out of the WEF, WIF, should have been woof, but WIF, out of WEF in 2020. So, all the timing of all of this, how convenient, eh? There's a document, and I put the link up in the comments, and it's called Re-Imaging Regulation for the Age of AI, New Zealand Pilot Project White Paper, June 2020, World Economic Forum. And in a nutshell, we are used as guinea pigs. And so what we're not even used as guinea pigs. I mean, in 2020, did you hear Labor campaign on this, that they're going to tāhai our identity? And so you heard the concerns of Dr. Tahu Kukutai yesterday, Professor Tahu Kukutai, and she had major concerns about Māori data being tāhai'd. Who are the people that are doing the tāhai? What are they using that information for, and for whom does it benefit, right? Those are relevant questions. And, that's at a Māori level. And so they've done this research at a Māori level. And she's talking about the data and statistics bill, but I'm talking about the digital identity services trust framework bill as well, because this is the pilot. So they never campaigned on it, so they've brought it in via stealth. Never ever campaigned on it, so now you know that they're not there for our best interests. We know Labor's not going to make it in come next election, so they're going to try and do as much harm as possible. It's like yeah they're going to try and do as much harm as possible, or try and get as much as their agenda out as possible. And again, this is not a conspiracy because the data, the information is there for all to see. And so we know artificial intelligence is impacting on us in a big way, but only the government can, one, protect us from artificial intelligence, and two, make sure that no artificial intelligence is going to harm their state or their people. And this is not happening. And Dr. Tahu Kukutai highlighted that. She said that they're offshoring, so it's going into a central but a database somewhere. There's a provider somewhere, and we don't know who those providers are, right? And we don't know what type of harm they're going to do with the data that they have. I mean, we've heard that TikTok, and I cannot confirm, so we still have to confirm this. But TikTok, which is owned by China, is collecting all our data. It's come out on Facebook. And there's podcasts about it, that TikTok is actually working with governments and looking at selling all the data that sits within their platform as well. So, these technocrats have a lot of power. We go in there, our kids go in, our kids love it, right? And so Facebook is trying to create a similar thing called Reels, which is similar to TikTok, because they want to try and capture what TikTok's captured, because they've lost a lot of supporters. But it's the power behind these technocrats. It's the data that they get access to, and apparently on your phone they can get access to everything from your bank accounts, to your files, to your emails. Basically, they have access to everything through these platforms. So where is our government protecting us from these technocrats? Well, actually, some governments are supporting these technocrats, and they're sharing information. The question is, what are they going to do with that information? Now, so uh, so the World Economic Forum is spearheading a multi-stakeholder project in partnership with the New Zealand government. And that program is about designing regulatory frameworks for artificial intelligence to influence policy, and using other governments as pilots. Now, here's these unelected globalists having a huge impact on our sovereignty, and this government is part and parcel of that. When did they ever come to us? When did any Labour candidate, when we were campaigning in 2020? I know Nanaia Mahuta didn't tell me that her party was going to be part of a pilot program that was going to high our identity. She never campaigned on that. I don't know of any other Labour candidate that campaigned on the fact that our identity and our data was going to be stolen. So they've stolen our bodies through mandates and coercion, and now they want to steal our identity. So if you don't think we're in a war, whānau, if you don't think we're in a war for our sovereignty, please think again, because it's out there in plain sight. So you need to go in and you need to read it. Like I said, I've put all this information on my live from yesterday, and it's already in train. They're already actioning it with those two bills that are sitting in Parliament right now. So that tells me that we need to entrench our New Zealand Bill of Rights, and we need to entrench our human rights, and that's going to be a major push for the freedoms and rights warriors in this space. And we're not just doing it for us, we're doing it for the whole of Aotearoa, whether people realise it or not. If we don't, in the future our mokopuna are going to be enslaved. are going to be enslaved. So here's another thing that is another lead up. So the WEF and the WTO are pushing for global digital identity of persons and objects. And again, I'm going to share this so that you can see. I did share pictures of it yesterday. I shared pictures of it yesterday, but I'm going to put it up so you can see the thinking behind all of this, right? And how they're actioning it through our government. So we have a right to ask any candidate, do you belong to a secret society? I don't care if it's Freemasons, Knights Templar, WEF. I don't give an F what the society is. If you do, it means there's another agenda on board. And if you say no and you're lying, you will be found out. You will be found out. And I think that all candidates should ask, do you belong to a society, be it secret or not? Yes or no? Because those are the questions I'll be asking the candidates when we get out there and do our full campaign for local government. And I will be asking the candidates when I get out there for the 2023. So I might have let the cat out of the bag, but we have a right to know. Or have you ever belonged, or are you considering belonging to? Because we know that there are different agendas. I don't care if people belong to them. I really don't care, but I do care if you're going to act on behalf of the public and you belong to them, because that tells me you have another agenda. And if you do and you openly say it, cake to pie, then it's up to the public to choose whether or not they want that person, and then they're fully informed, and that's democracy. I don't have an issue with that either. But all the secrecy is what's got us into the trouble that we're in now. And I have no trust at all in the Labor government. It's not a Labor government. It's not a Labor government of old that my grandparents and my great-grandparents voted for. This is not the same Labor government. These are traitors, as far as I'm concerned. They are a traitor to their people. They are a traitor to their people. And all of this legislation tells me so. The coercion and the mandates tell me so. This has never been about health. If it was about health, you would have listened to me in the first instance when whānau were getting sick from the jabs. They were vaccine injured. You would have listened to those people when they called out and said, help, they're getting vaccine injured. You didn't. And these are the politicians in power now, in Parliament now. You didn't. No one listened. So you're all on notice. And if I have the privilege of getting chosen to go down to Wellington, I'm going to hold you all accountable for your actions. Anyway. I won't get off track. It's important. So I'm just going to share this document just so you can see. Okay. Here we go. And this is the document here. It says, we the people risk becoming they the product as a service for those who control the data and set digital identity policies and perspectives. So this is the photo that I put up on my live yesterday, and it's like the mark of the beast when you think about it. So everybody, and it's through facial identity, right? And everybody gets a code number. And what does it say here? We the people risk becoming they the product as a service to those who control the data and set digital identity policies. Just as the so-called fourth industrial revolution is merging our physical, oh sorry, my husband's phone's just gone off. I'll read that again. Just as the so-called fourth industrial revolution is emerging, our physical, digital, and biological identities, the World Economic Forum and World Trade Organization are looking to bring digital identity to physical objects, digital products, and biological beings. Now that's scary. And that pretty much says it in a nutshell, whānau. I won't go into any more detail. It is on the comments on my live for yesterday, but it's important that we are aware of exactly what's happening to us. Does that all make sense to you all? Oh, kia ora moana, Janine, Jenny, Aroha, Michelle, awesome. Kathy, Jan, Joanne. So I think it's just important that we keep ourselves abreast of everything that's happening. Oh, kia ora Coco. Yeah, so it's a real serious matter, and I don't see. Well, hang on a minute. The Te Pāti Māori did come out and put out a press release. I don't know if they know the real ramifications of it, but you know, in their puku, they sensed that something wasn't right, and they were correct in that, and it's something that I have been aware of for a very long time. Something that I've tried to warn us of earlier as well. So you know, we just need to. What do? What's the answer here? Well, you let your politicians know that you know what's happening. You let them know that you do not support. You know, bombard their emails. Go in, do your own work here, whānau, and we need our warriors here. We collectively can make a difference, right? We collectively can make a difference, and you vote for those that are going to hold these politicians in Wellington accountable. We have to. Not everyone's awake, but educate your whānau, and if they don't believe you, you've got some resources there, right? You've got some resources there. So remember, who's collecting our data? What are the purposes behind what they're collecting? And why are they collecting, and how are they benefiting from it? It's our information, it's our data. We should have authority over our own information, our own data. Again, it is sovereignty of our country at stake. Our liberties, our civil liberties are at stake. Our physical being is at stake, and now our identity is at stake. They're tāhaing the lot. And they never campaigned on that, because you know what? If they campaigned on that, they would not have gotten. They have lied. Talk about misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theory. They have lied through their teeth, and they think they've got away with it, and they haven't. That's all I'm saying. Okay, I've got a video of Russell Brand that I want to share. I was going to share it yesterday, but that information was too important to have another video clog it. So I just thought, no, I won't do another live. I was going to do Russell Brand's video yesterday, but I'm going to do it now. I'm going to put his video up now. So enjoy watching it. I'm going to mute, so let me know, and I'm sure you will, whānau. Let me know if you can't hear it, because then I'll have to sort out my settings. Okay, I'm going to mute it, and then I'm going to share Russell Brand's kōrero. Really interesting.
FDA and CDC speak out, the COVID narrative is falling apart. Yet those of you who for a long time have suspected we weren't being told the whole truth are conspiracy theorists, right? Hello there, you 5.8 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining me on this voyage towards truth. We ride upon the waves of your strength, your glory, your optimism. It's you that's going to change the world, not them. You don't need to be frightened anymore. The great power that you've always known within you is being unlocked, and as we unify, the change will come. 5.8 million of us. Can't all be wrong, can we? Probably. I mean, if we were drunk enough or silly enough or distracted or something, perhaps by the mainstream media, who are determined to lay out false and distracting narratives continually, particularly around the issues where clarity and transparency are most necessary. Today, I'm going to be telling you how whistleblowers from the FDA, that's the Food and Drug Administration, the NIH, and the CDC, all have people coming forward to talk to a prominent and respected Johns Hopkins scientist about the way that information has been repressed and mismanaged and mishandled. In this instance, primarily around the recommendation for vaccines for children, but not just that, across the whole scope of this 2-year-long pandemic. And if there's any doubt that there's been any confusion at all, just look at these statements and see if you can spot any contradiction.
You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
Tonight, President Biden testing positive for COVID-19 yet again.
Oh, it is confusing, isn't it? You definitely won't get COVID. I've got COVID. Am I better yet? But before we trust what I've got to say on this issue, I, after all, am a former celebrity and drug addict. Let's see what our old friends, the mainstream media, have got to say on it.
Some breaking news from the FDA at this hour. That agency just authorized Pfizer COVID booster shots for kids aged 5 to 11.
Got to be good for them then. It must be necessary. There can't be any other reason that they would recommend it, can there?
Up until now, the one hole in the vaccine protection blanket in the United States has been for children 5 years old and younger.
Oh, that's been the main hole in the blanket. There's only been one hole. Not a hole where Pfizer said they're not going to release files for 75 years. Not a hole where yellow card reactions were never discussed. Not a hole where natural immunity was repressed. Not a hole where they said the vaccines were 100% effective, they're not effective. Not a hole where Paxlovid was said to be 40% effective, then was revealed to be 2% effective. It's not a blanket, it's a pair of fishnet tights, love. It's what you got there.
They couldn't get them, leaving many parents frustrated.
I know, if only Sesame Street would jump on this and mentally bludgeon us.
Getting your COVID vaccine, Elmo.
The FDA authorized vaccine boosters for children ages 12 to 15 on Monday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, God. The old fishnet stockings are becoming more reliable. The blanket is finally closing. The mainstream media, along with the government and big business, in particular Big Pharma, have done it again. They've come together to help us, the people. That's what they do, right?
The agency says everyone in that age group can now get a third dose of the Pfizer vaccine.
Notice they use the word can, not ought or should, or it would be beneficial that. They only have to say can at this point because they've spent the last 2 years terrifying us into thinking it's the only possible solution. Now, I'm not saying that vaccines don't work. I'm not saying that you should ignore the government. I'm not saying that there are not benefits to the marvels of modern medicine, to the ingenuity of the scientific community. I'm simply saying that in the case of children, there may be some counter arguments. Not my counter-arguments, the bloke that was in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Forget that guy, who needs him? I'm talking about Marty Makary, professor at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. Listen to his arguments, then get this, decide for yourself.
This week, the Brooklyn Nets and Pfizer invited dozens of children from Brooklyn-based community groups to the Barclays.
Good old Pfizer, there they are, just helping kids do basketball. What's our main objective at Pfizer this year? Well, personally, I would just like to see more kids playing basketball. Are we going to get any return on that? Well, no, just to see the kids playing basketball.
To the Barclays to improve their basketball skills.
Just improve their basketball skills? You mean that's it? Come on, there's got to be something. Well, I suppose we could push for the 4th vaccine booster. Keep talking. 5th? Come on. 6? How about 666, the number of the beast? Let's get everybody vaccinated, baby! Obviously, I'm having a bit of fun there, and you must always make your own health decisions because you are a responsible, brilliant person. You've got this far. You've overcome the many obstacles in your life that you've gone through that no one will ever know that you've surmounted. You don't need me to tell you what to do. You don't need anyone to tell you what to do. But here's some information from Marty Makary, who I think he's some sort of conspiracy theorist over at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. If I'm right, David Icke and Alex Jones set up the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, and Marty Makary, he just works there. Also, Dr. Tracy Beth Herg, an epidemiologist affiliated with the Florida Department of Health, which I believe was set up on a grassy knoll by Lee Harvey Oswald. Doctors and scientists at the top levels of the NIH, FDA, and CDC are variously frustrated, exasperated, and alarmed about the direction of the agencies to which they've devoted their careers. That's not what you want, is it, when you've devoted your career to something? How do you feel about devoting your career to that agency? Well, I'm sort of frustrated, exasperated, and alarmed. Welcome to the firm. Right now, internal critics of these agencies are focused on one issue above all. Why did the FDA and the CDC issue strong blanket recommendations for COVID vaccines in children? Blanket and children have not been at so much risk since the death of Michael Jackson. 3 weeks ago, the CDC vigorously recommended mRNA COVID vaccines for 20 million children under the age of 5. Dr. Rochelle Walensky, director of the CDC, declared that the mRNA COVID vaccine should be given to everyone 6 months or older because they are safe and effective. The trouble is that this sweeping recommendation was based on extremely weak and inconclusive data provided by, wait for it, Pfizer and Moderna. This sweeping recommendation, was it based on strong and conclusive data? Oh no, it was extremely weak and inconclusive data. Well, thank God the recommendations are sweeping then. Start with Pfizer. Using a free-dose vaccine in 992 children between the ages of 6 months and 5 years, Pfizer found no statistically significant evidence of vaccine efficacy. Let me say that again. No statistically significant evidence. In the subgroup of children aged 6 months to 2 years, the trial also found that the vaccine could result in a 99% lower chance of infection, but that they could also have a 370% increased chance of being infected. In other words, Pfizer reported a range of vaccine efficacy so wide that no conclusion could be inferred. So it's not that the vaccine definitely does nothing, but it certainly isn't that it definitely does something. Is that following the science to make a recommendation on that basis? No reputable medical journal would accept such sloppy and incomplete results with such a small sample size. More to the point, these results should have given pause to those who are in charge of public health. Now, I should point out that Professor Marty Makary has been inundated with communication from former staff members at the FDA, NIH, and CDC since publishing in Newsweek. We did a video about that article. I'll link to it at the end. Since then, whistleblowers have been reaching out. We're in disarray. It's chaos here. You can check out the article on Substack for yourself. We'll put a link in the description. This is amazing information from Marty Makary, what I would call a proper scientist who is following data in order to reach conclusions and pose further questions, not simply making recommendations which, here's a wacky coincidence, make a profit for Pfizer and Moderna. That's weird because they're the people that funded the study. Wow. Moderna's results, they conducted a study on 6,388 children with 2 doses, were not much better. Against asymptomatic infections, they claimed a very weak vaccine efficacy of just 4% in children aged 6 months to 2 years. They also claimed an efficacy of 23% in children between 2 and 6 years old. But neither result was statistically significant. Against symptomatic infections, Moderna's vaccine did show efficacy that was statistically significant, but the efficacy was low. 50% in children aged 6 months to 2 years and 42% in children between 2 and 6 years old. What I believe is that the mainstream media, the government, and Big Pharma ought to be giving you access directly to that information. I'm not recommending, of course, why the hell would I, that you would vaccinate your children or not vaccinate your children on the basis of this information. I would simply see it as my job to tell you that information and then you decide. I have children and I can look at that information and I can make a decision about what I would do with my own children and what I will do with my children. I believe that you have the same right to do that. And you might make a different choice than me. And that's all right. That's okay. That doesn't make me bad or you bad or anyone bad. We certainly don't need to fight each other over that. What we should be uniting over is the right to have direct access to that information so we can make our own decisions. You might have a different family to me. You might have grown up in a family of doctors. You might deal with levels of sickness that I can only imagine. Or I might know stuff about my family's personal health and personal circumstances that might make me come to a different outcome. That doesn't make me bad or you bad. Why would we focus on that? Why was the whole 2 years of the pandemic devoted to condemning people that had a different perspective, that had doubts about it, or, vice versa. Why condemn anybody? Why do that? Why spend our limited time here on this planet when we're supposed to be awakening together, condemning one another, while truly malevolent forces continue to succeed? Then there's the matter of how a long vaccine gives protection. We know from data in adults that it's generally a matter of months, but we have no such data for young children. And yet the FDA and the CDC pushed it through. That slap in the face of science may explain why only 2% of parents of children aged under 5 have chosen to get the COVID vaccine, and 40% of parents in rural areas say their pediatricians did not recommend the COVID vaccine for their children. That's how medicine used to be practiced, didn't it? You would go and see your doctor. If you trusted your doctor would make a recommendation, you'd go with the doctor. It used to be like a political issue. Oh no, I don't feel well. For God's sake, get the president on the phone. Like, America was going to be founded on individual freedom, state freedom, community freedom, the right to pursue happiness. These are the values that belong not only to America, but I would argue to humanity as a whole. Make your own decisions. Allow people to live their own lives. Be who you are. Run your community how your community wants to be run according to democratic consensus, not top-down edicts that come from the WEF or the WHO or the CDC or the NIH. Give us the information, let us decide. This isn't the first time that COVID vaccine recommendations based on scant evidence have been pushed through these agencies. You're right about that, baby. Most recently, back in May, the lack of clinical evidence for booster shots in young people created a stir at the FDA. The White House promoted it hard even before FDA regulators had seen any data. If it isn't based on data, then what the hell has all this follow the science stuff been about? They were making recommendations before they'd seen the data. They were condemning unvaccinated people. Oh, follow the science, follow the science. You follow the science. Let us follow the science. Give us the science. We'll follow it for ourselves. Anything other than that is propaganda at best and tyranny at worst. And that's why people are cynical. And that's why people are frustrated. And that is why people want change. That's why people don't trust the media. That's why people don't trust the government. That's why they don't trust Big Pharma. It's not complicated. Once they saw the data, they weren't impressed. Oh, it showed no clear benefit against severe disease for people under 40. Is that the data that you're following? Is that the science you're inviting us to follow? The FDA's two top vaccine regulators, Dr. Marion Gruber, director of the FDA's vaccine office, and her deputy director, Dr. Philip Krause, quit the agency last year over political pressure to authorize vaccine boosters in young people. Their own people are quitting because they feel pressurized. They feel that they are unable to follow the science. So what we were told was science was in fact political pressure. The same way as 100 years ago or 200 years ago, you'd be invited to follow a particular religious orthodoxy. This is the truth. This is the truth. Burn them at the stake. Can we look at the facts? Can we follow the date? It's all there in this old book. Can we read it? Sorry, it's in a language you don't understand. Tell me how the science orthodoxy isn't the same. If it's not based on transparent data available to all people so they can make decisions for themselves, how is that different from the kind of orthodox dogma that the secular project, i.e. having the state responsible for organizing people's political life rather than crazy old-fashioned religious stuff, how is it any different? After their departure, they wrote scathing commentaries explaining why the data did not support a broad booster authorization, arguing in the Washington Post that the push for boosters for everyone could actually prolong the pandemic, citing concerns that boosting based on an outdated variant could be counterproductive. These are not anti-vaxxers. These are scientists. These are people that probably fight to the death for the right to give people medicines that are effective. They've devoted their careers to effective medicine. This is not anti-science. This is not anti-doctors, medicine, research, data, double-blind testing, clinical conditions. This is not against that. This is against propaganda and tyranny that's been framed as science in order to prevent reasonable discourse, public debate, and personal autonomy. So let's call it what it is. If you agree with me, give this video a thumbs up, let me know in the comments, and share this video around. One subject these doctors and scientists feel passionately about but feel they cannot bring up is natural immunity. Why, they wonder, are we insisting on immunizing children who already have some immunity to the disease due to having contracted COVID? Why can that not be part of the conversation? Why are scientists not able to express their opinion? Like, even if they're wrong, Why not allow it to be expressed so that the conversation can happen publicly? I know a lot of you guys say when you cut out a man's tongue, you just show the world you're afraid of the truth he has to say. Do the proper comment below. I've mangled it up. As of February, 75% of children in the US already had natural immunity from prior infection. It could easily be over 90% of children today, given how ubiquitous Omicron has been since then. The CDC's own research shows that natural immunity is better than vaccinated immunity. And a recent New England Journal of Medicine study from Israel has questioned the benefits of vaccinating previously infected persons. Many countries have long credited natural immunity towards vaccine mandates, but not the US. There you go. What science do you want to follow? If you don't allow people to have access to that kind of information and make their own decisions, do you know what I start to think? You've got an agenda, and that agenda is based on profit and power. And that's the agenda you're pursuing. And that's why people are leaving the FDA. And that's why people are leaving the CDC and NIH, because they're not all baddies and villains. And I'm not suggesting there is any malevolent, unhuman, occultist thing going on. I don't know. How could I know? But when you prevent and stifle proper debate and transparency, then people do start to think that something strange is going on. I don't blame people for thinking that. In this, the leaders of the American health agencies made the US an international outlier in how it treats children. Sweden never offered vaccination to children under 12. Finland limits COVID vaccines to children under 12 who are at high risk. Right, so a sensible decision is made. These children are at risk, we recommend it. Oh, wouldn't it be more profitable if we vaccinated all children? Yeah, but it'll be unnecessary and you'll lose the trust of the population. The Norwegian Institute of Public Health has appropriately stated that some children may benefit, but previous infection offers as good of protection as the vaccine against reinfection. Follow the science. Denmark announced on June the 22nd that its recommendation to vaccinate any children under the age of 16 was a mistake. Wow, that sounds like proper government coming out of Denmark. We made a mistake. We're sorry. We're wrong. This is the truth as we understand it best now. The vaccinations were not predominantly recommended for the child's sake, but to ensure pandemic control, said Søren Brostrøm, head of the Danish Ministry of Health. Well, as long as you can guarantee that that is the reason to prevent the pandemic spreading and not in order to generate profits and not just as a reflexive response to get power or power is accessible, then I think you can have an open discourse with the people that you've elected to serve you. But when you see Joe Biden say, or Fauci say, oh, you won't get the disease if you have this vaccine, then they go, I've got the disease. You have to acknowledge that something's changed. Hey, we were wrong. So now, going forward, we're going to be honest. You tell me in the comments below why you think they can't come forward and say that. The leaders of the CDC, the FDA, and the NIH should welcome internal discussion, even dissension, based on evidence. Silencing physicians is not following the science. Less absolutism and more humility by the men and women running our public health agencies would go a long way in rebuilding public trust. Well, these two doctors, Marty Makary and Tracy Beth Herg, in my opinion, are approaching this subject in exactly the right way. Transparency, honesty, openness, science, empiricism, communication, trust and faith in individual decisions. That is the kind of science that I want to follow. I want to follow science that is based on helping people, not science that could be based on making a profit and increasing centralized power. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know if you'd like to see Marty Makary on our show so that we could talk to them directly. Let me know if that's what you want. Give this video a thumbs up. Show it to anyone you think would benefit from it. You know you have these conversations all the time with people that have a different perspective. Show them this information. Let's move this conversation forward sensibly, inclusively, without condemning anyone, because we're all different and we all look at the world in different ways. But I believe there is a unitary force beneath us that bonds us and unites us, and together we can serve that in good faith. Thank you, all 5.8 million of you. If you don't subscribe yet, subscribe right now. Turn on the notification bell, because do you know what? I sometimes think that the algorithm hides these videos. I don't know. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I think all sorts of crazy stuff. Sign up to my mailing list. It's right there. More important than any of that stuff, though, is that you please stay free.
Oh, I'm glad I played his video to use you guys today because it's so powerful and so informative. And it goes back to the mandates, it goes back to our politicians, it goes back to everything that we've said. And like you said, we need to start having honest conversations. And I'm starting to see commentary from the other side, those that were pro-vaccine, pro-mandates. You're starting to see a shift. Why? Because they're starting to see the science. But it was always there. Like I says, you know, there was a bit of willful blindness going on with our politicians. But like he says, let's all have the same information. Let's all have the same information out there, and all this information should have been put out there instead of restricted, so that we can make it. It's all about informed consent. We talked about that as well. We were talking about informed consent with the occupation in Wellington. We're going to look back. Our children, our grandchildren are going to look back. They're going to see all the video clips. Our country did change on March the 2nd in regards to the occupation and the way that there was police brutality. I mean, we saw it for our own eyes. This government and the police, ironically, the police got $600 million not long after what went down. I mean, what would have stopped Jacinda Ardern from going out and talking to those people who elected her in? I didn't elect her in, but I was talking to a lot of people at the occupation, and they elected her in. Never again. They will never, ever trust Labor again. I think Labor's gone. Labor has fractured the trust and the integrity of our country, that I actually think they're gone. They will struggle. But doesn't mean to say that National are any better, because they could have been worse. They could have been worse tyrants. And we know that because they did not act in opposition. And they still don't act in opposition. I mean, they twink a few things here and there, and they make a squeak here and there, but really they're not a party in opposition. So I hope you enjoyed that video. And I've shut it down. I was going to put the link up, but you go to Russell Brand. He brought it out yesterday. That's why I was going to actually put it up yesterday. But it's science, and like he says, you may not agree with those scientists, but at least you have the information, and you can make the decision for you and your whānau. We weren't given those choices. I was all about pro-choice, but even those, a lot of my whānau said they were coerced, that no jab, no job. If they had the choice, they would not have taken the jab. A lot of them look at me and my whānau who didn't get the jab and say, "What, nothing's happened to you." Then, actually those that have got jab, we've lost them. They've been vaccine injured and they've passed. So, and all of that information, like I shared, we're up to MedSafe Safety Report 44, and the data's sitting there in plain sight, and no one questioned the government over that data that is sitting there. So it's all coming out, whānau, and those that called me a conspiracy theorist, well, yeah, I'll accept your apology. Because it's only a conspiracy for a few months until the truth comes out. So, let that be a lesson too. Don't think you know, because you don't all know. And I will make mistakes, but I will apologize for those mistakes. But don't let me be the one source of truth. You've got to do your own due diligence and do your own research and make up your own mind for your own whānau. So I'm going to tune out now. Thank you to Ellie, Janine, Joe, S. Falcourt, Louise, thank you all. I'll be reading your comments once I finish, but thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And Minna, thank you. She said these Americans can talk, well, so can this Māori girl, kōrero, as well. But anyway, whānau, on that note, happy birthday to my son yesterday, and we had a new moko come in late last night, so we've got another mokopuna, another reason to fight for our mokopuna's freedom, because I've just received another taonga. And popo tomorrow, my papa's been gone for a month, so mixed emotions for me, whānau, the passing of my dad and then the birth of my mokopuna. So, that's the cycle of life. Kia pai tō rā, ka kite anō, kia ora rā. Love yous all.